Imagine digging up a grave in the dead of night, only for the coffin to blast you to pieces. In January of 1881, three shadows crept through the frozen grass of Beulah Chapel Cemetery in Knox County, Ohio. Armed with shovels and lanterns, they were there for a commodity worth more than gold in the black market: a fresh human corpse. But as their iron tools scraped the top of the casket, they didn't find decaying wood. Instead, they tripped a hidden wire. A split second later, a massive explosion shattered the midnight silence. One man was instantly ripped to shreds. Another screamed in agony, his leg completely shattered by flying lead. The third fled into the night, dragging his bleeding accomplice onto a horse-drawn sleigh, leaving a trail of blood in the snow. This wasn't a curse, and it wasn't a military landmine. It was a legally patented consumer product. Welcome to the Patent Graveyard. Today, we're unearthing one of the most terrifying, bizarre, and lethal chapters in American history: the Coffin Torpedo. In the late 19th century, grieving families turned their loved ones' final resting places into weapons-grade death traps. How did the United States Patent Office actually approve weapons designed to blow citizens to pieces? Who was the mastermind behind this explosive defense? And the most chilling question of all, are there still live, active bombs waiting beneath the soil of American graveyards? Don't close your eyes, because the battle between the living and the dead is about to get incredibly violent. To understand why anyone would put a literal bomb in a coffin, we have to look at the bizarre and terrifying economy of 19th century America. Following the Civil War, the United States saw a massive boom in modern medicine. Medical schools were popping up everywhere, but there was a massive problem. To teach surgery and anatomy, you need human bodies. You need cadavers. The legal supply of bodies, which was limited almost entirely to executed criminals, was nowhere near enough to meet the demand. Enter the Resurrectionists, or more commonly known as body snatchers. These weren't just common thieves looking for jewelry or gold teeth. They were professional contractors, sometimes hired directly by the medical schools themselves. A fresh corpse could fetch up to $60 at the time, which is roughly equivalent to nearly $2,000 today. For a poor laborer in the 1870s, digging a hole for 2 hours at night paid more than a month of grueling factory work. The process was disturbingly clinical. They wouldn't dig up the whole grave. That took too much time. Instead, they'd dig a small shaft directly down to the head of the coffin. They'd use a crowbar to snap the wooden lid, slip a rope around the corpse's neck, and pull it out like a fish on a line. Within 15 minutes, the grave was filled back up to look undisturbed, and the body was on its way to a medical school basement, packed in a barrel of brine. For decades, the public lived in absolute terror. Nobody was safe. It didn't matter if you were poor, middle class, or elite. If you were buried, you were a target. And then, in May of 1878, a scandal broke that pushed America over the edge. John Scott Harrison was no ordinary citizen. He was an Ohio congressman. More famously, he was the son of the 9th U.S. President William Henry Harrison. And his own son, Benjamin Harrison, would later become the 23rd President of the United States. When John Scott Harrison died on May 25, 1878, his family knew the dangers. They were terrified of the body snatchers.
To keep him safe, they spared no expense. They buried him in a heavy metal casket, placed it inside a brick and cement vault, covered it with heavy stone slabs, and even hired a private armed watchman to guard the gravesite every single hour of the night. It seemed foolproof. But just days after the funeral, John Scott Harrison's son, John Cleves Harrison, went to the Medical College of Ohio in Cincinnati on a search. He wasn't even looking for his father. He was looking for a family friend whose body had also been stolen from a nearby cemetery. As he searched the dark corridors of the medical school, he noticed a rope hanging down an elevator shaft. He pulled the rope. Up from the darkness rose a naked body with a cloth wrapped around its head. When they removed the cloth, John Cleves gasped in horror. It was his father, John Scott Harrison. Despite the brick vault, the cement, and the armed guard, professional grave robbers had bypassed everything. They had stolen the son of a U.S. president and sold him to a medical school for a handful of dollars. The nation was gripped by outrage. If a president's family couldn't protect their dead, what hope did an ordinary American have? The fear was palpable, and in the world of American capitalism, where there is fear, there's a market. Just 1 month after the Harrison scandal, an artist from Columbus, Ohio named Philip K. Clover decided he had the ultimate solution. On June 29, 1878, Clover walked into the United States Patent Office with a blueprint. His goal? To design an ironclad deterrent that would, in his own words, successfully prevent the unauthorized resurrection of dead bodies. On October 8, 1878, U.S. Patent number 208627 was officially granted. It was called the Coffin Torpedo. Now, when we hear the word torpedo today, we think of a missile fired from a submarine, but in the 19th century, a torpedo referred to any stationary explosive or landmine. So how did Clover's invention actually work? Unlike a landmine placed on the ground, Clover's torpedo was meant to be mounted inside the coffin lid. It was essentially a short-barreled shotgun aimed directly upward toward the top of the casket. The device was connected to a series of spring-loaded triggers. Once the lid of the coffin was closed and secured, the weapon was armed. If a resurrectionist dug down and used a crowbar to pry open the casket lid, the movement of the wood would release the trigger. A heavy iron hammer would strike a percussion cap, detonating a massive charge of black powder. A lethal blast of lead balls would fire directly through the lid and into the face and chest of the grave robber standing directly above. Clover's patent illustration is a haunting piece of engineering. It shows the perfect, deadly symmetry of a mechanical guardian designed to protect the dead by violently executing the living. But Clover opened the floodgates. Soon, a literal arms race began in American cemeteries. Another Ohioan, a former probate judge named Thomas N. Howell, looked at Clover's shotgun design and thought, "We can make this much more destructive." On December 20, 1881, Howell patented his own version of the grade torpedo. Howell realized that a shotgun inside a coffin had a flaw. If the thief was smart, they might stand to the side while prying the lid open. So, Howell designed his torpedo to be buried above the coffin. It was a heavy iron sphere packed with gunpowder and shrapnel, essentially a modern landmine. It was connected to tripwires running across the chest and shoulders of the deceased. If you tried to lift the body or even tamper with the soil above it, the bomb would detonate, turning the entire gravesite into a localized war zone. Howell's advertisements for his device were surprisingly poetic, yet deeply threatening. One of his ads read, "Sleep well, sweet angel. Let no fears of ghouls disturb your rest, for above your shrouded form lies a torpedo, ready to make mincemeat of anyone who attempts to convey you." And people bought them. Grieving families, desperate for peace of mind, began paying extra fees to undertakers to arm their family plots. But coffin torpedoes weren't the only weapons. Some cemeteries installed cemetery guns, shotguns set up on a rotating pivot at the center of the graveyard, connected to invisible tripwires. If a thief walked through the dark, they would trip a wire. The gun would automatically spin to face them and fire. Others used mort safes, heavy iron cages placed over the coffins, bolted into the ground. But nothing captured the public's imagination and terror quite like the exploding coffins. For a long time, historians wondered, Were these just crazy ideas in patent books, or did they actually go off? The answer is a resounding, terrifying yes. The Knox County incident of January 1881 wasn't folklore. It was reported by multiple newspapers, including the Ohio State Journal. A group of resurrectionists, led by a notorious local ghoul simply known in the papers as Dipper, targeted a grave near the village of Gann, Ohio. They thought it was an easy score. They dug, they reached the coffin, they pried, and then the night sky lit up. The torpedo detonated with terrifying force. Dipper was killed instantly, his body ripped apart by the blast. His accomplice had his leg shattered by shrapnel. The survivor somehow managed to drag the dying and injured men into a sleigh and escape into the winter night, leaving behind a ruined grave, a shattered casket, and a clear warning to anyone else with a shovel. This brings us to a deeply unsettling reality. While many coffin torpedoes were rented by families for just a few weeks until the body decayed enough to be useless to medical schools, some were bought permanently and left in the ground. Over the years, the wooden coffins rotted, the iron shells rusted, but black powder doesn't necessarily expire if it remains sealed and dry. In December of 1939, workers at the Mount Hope Cemetery in Logansport, Indiana, were digging a new grave when their shovels struck a metal object. It was an unexploded, fully armed Victorian coffin torpedo. To this day, historians and archaeologists believe there are still active, loaded explosive devices buried in historic cemeteries across the American Midwest, a literal minefield of the dead, waiting for one wrong step. So how did this madness finally end? Why aren't we still putting landmines in our local cemeteries? It wasn't because of a sudden wave of moral outrage. It was because of two things: law and technology. By the late 1880s and 1990s, the horrific scandals of body snatching forced state governments to act. Ohio, New York, and several other states passed landmark legislation known as the Anatomy Acts. These laws made it legal and systematic for medical schools to receive unclaimed bodies from prisons, asylums, and public morgues. Suddenly, the black market price of a corpse collapsed. There was no need to hire sketchy men to dig up graves when schools could get bodies legally for free. At the same time, a massive technological leap occurred: artificial refrigeration. Before refrigeration, medical schools could only perform dissections in the winter because bodies would rot too quickly in the summer. This seasonal rush drove the extreme demand for fresh winter graves. With refrigeration, schools could preserve bodies year-round, stabilizing the supply and making the frantic late-night grave robberies a thing of the past. By the turn of the 20th century, the resurrection men vanished into history, and with them, the need for Philip Clover's lethal casket shotgun disappeared. Today, we look back at the Victorian era as a time of strict manners, beautiful architecture, and elegant poetry. But beneath that polished surface lay a desperate, dark reality where even the peace of the grave had to be bought with gunpowder and lead. The coffin torpedo remains one of the most extreme, lethal, and bizarre inventions ever approved by the U.S. government, a literal monument to how far humans will go to protect the ones they love, even after they're gone. Next time you take a quiet walk through an old cemetery and you look down at the grass, just remember, some secrets are buried deep and some are still waiting to go off. Thanks for watching The Patent Graveyard. If you enjoyed this dive into the darker side of history, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and tell us in the comments, would you have armed your loved one's grave? Until next time, sleep well.